I beckoned people in our YouTube and Discord community to send me wild and ridiculous campaign ideas that I have to make work in a short amount of time. So in a minute, I'm gonna rattle off as many as I can in 5 minutes to show you that yes, you can pretty much make any campaign idea work so long as you come at it from the right angle. Because as we've seen with popular D&D shows like Dimension 20, and with not as popular shows like mine, the DM's Day Off podcast, D&D doesn't just have to be traditional medieval fantasy. It can take place in a big city, in Candyland, in a nightclub, or inside of God's testicles if you really want. And to make your dream setting come true, all you need is your imagination and a way to focus it. Now, you'll hear all about this and see it in practice in just a second, but before that, we need to make something clear. Because you see, there are many people who talk about how D&D and tabletop RPGs are fantastic because anything is possible so long as you can imagine it, which is true. But then some of those same people will shut down other people's ideas purely because it's not in the scope of what they think D&D or whatever should be, which is hypocritical at best and in actuality is just completely stupid. Now, there is a valid argument to make about how some tabletop systems are better for certain things, because it's true. But there is an equally valid argument for cramming what you can into your preferred system because, what? You and your players are gonna learn a new system every time you have a crazy idea? That's way too much to expect. I mean, Jesus Christ, I don't even know all the rules to the one system I claim to be an expert at, and you wanna know why? Because there's like thousands. So to everyone who tries to shut down your creativity, I actually have something for you. Just give me a second. Oh. Where the hell is it? Oh. Crazy. Now that we got our PSA out of the way, let's talk about how to make any idea work in D&D 5e or the tabletop RPG you prefer. So first, you obviously need an idea, and how to generate ideas is a video topic on its own I'll tackle relatively soon, so stick around for that. But let's say you have a campaign idea. Next, what you need is to figure out why your players would want to go on this adventure and also get them to buy into it. How do you know if your players will be into an idea or not? Well, first ask yourself, are you genuinely into this idea, and also why are you into it? Because if you can't answer that, or worse, find out you're actually not that into it, your campaign will fizzle out quickly and it will show in your DMing, because you can only put on an act for so long. But if you are really into the idea, then next go to your players and ask, hey, is this something you'd be interested in, and pitch it to them. You don't have to give away any major twists or anything like that, but open communication and letting your players know what they're getting into is really the most important part, and it solves so many future problems. And at the end of the day, if your players really aren't into your idea, it's okay to scrap it and try something else, or simply play it with a different group, because not every idea is for everyone. It's nothing against you, and like I said earlier, people can only put on an act for so long, and eventually your players' disinterest in the campaign will come out. So ask them to be brutally honest and try and stop a train wreck before it happens. Next, you need to determine how long your campaign should be. Just because any idea can work, some ideas are better as one-shots, some are better as short campaigns, and some are suited for epic long campaigns. And this actually bleeds into the next factor when it comes to making any campaign idea work, which is making sure there is enough to engage with. After you come up with your idea, ask yourself, what kind of combats can arise from this? What kind of roleplay moments can be had? What kind of traps or puzzles can I create? What kind of exploration will there be? And so on and so on. Once you've generated some of your branching ideas, it'll help you determine how long your campaign should be. For example, say you're running a dragon hunting campaign. Well, there's lots there because many dragons speak, so there is tons of roleplay. There are also good or bad dragons, so there's the morality of which dragons deserve death. And then there's also different types of dragons, so combat can remain fresh. Although maybe fighting dragons all the time is a bit too repetitive for your group, so you decide to make our campaign around 20 sessions long. Finally, once you have all that, you need to fill in any potential gaps with possible homebrew mechanics, lore, items, spells, or whatever to make it work. Basically, think about the major questions that need to be answered to make your world function. For example, if you're having a dragon hunting campaign, are there going to be homebrew classes surrounding dragon hunting? Why are dragons hunted specifically? Do dragonborns exist, and what are their role? Will there be optional dragon hunting feats? And so on and so on. This will be very idea dependent, but so long as you don't mess with the core rules of your chosen system too much and mainly keep your changes additive and not subtractive, you should be good to go. For example, giving all your players a select feat is great, but changing how many actions, reactions, and so on a player has changes the game entirely, so be careful with that. But this is all talk, and if you're like me, I learned from example. So let's get to what you're waiting for. I got members of our community to send me a bunch of their wild and wacky campaign ideas. I then got a friend to select some, and then I cut them up and put them in this bowl. I'll be selecting them randomly and trying to make the chosen idea work. And I'll be rapid firing as many as I can in 5 minutes time to try and prove that any idea can work. Now I'm going to try and do this as blind as possible, albeit I did end up seeing a few when I was cutting up the sheets and responding to people in the comments, but for the most part, I'm going in blind. My goal is going to be 5 ideas, and finally, we're going to assume all your players are on board with the idea to save on explanation time. So I got my bowl right here, we're going to put that there, and we're going to try and do this in one take without cutting to keep it as raw as possible. So we are going to start the clock right now. Alright, bro pits. The party consists of high-level spellcasters and faces the threat of magic being drained from their world, causing them to level down instead of up across the campaign. They have to find the source of this curse fast, or they won't be powerful enough to stand a chance. So, there's definitely enough to engage with here, since we're not taking anything away other than the player's power over time, but all the other medieval elements still remain the same. So, let me just look at that. Yeah, but you could have your BBEG be the reason why your player's power is being drained and make this a shorter campaign where your players start at level 20 and then like lose a level each session. Yeah, I think that'd be the best way to do it. And then so you can set your BBEG CR at like 12, and then your players have to find the BBEG throughout the campaign. And if they find them at level 15, well, then the fight is simpler. But if they find them at level 9 or 12, well, the fight is really difficult. So it's kind of like a race against the clock. But yeah, that's how I do it. Okay. Muktuk. The party are sentient magic items and must trick a foolish band of adventurers into taking them out of the dungeon. So this reminds me kind of like an evil Toy Story where your players are cursed toys trying to get the people to play with them, except as adventurers trying to find items. Let me just look at this again. Yeah, so another shorter campaign or even a one-shot where your players, they still pick classes and stuff like that, but then they like will transform into magic items. So kind of like Transformers in a way, where they transform from humanoid to the item, so you can still have all the same class builds and all that kind of stuff. And then you can also let your players choose a magic item and build that magic item into their like class's abilities. So say if your players pick like a flame tongue, right? Then they will have like fire damage with their basic attacks. They'll shed bright light out 20 feet or whatever. And then in order why they're not being played with or why are they not being found, well, maybe they're at the back of like a really impossible dungeon. And so then that's the one shot or the short campaign, them beating the dungeon themselves to get to near the front where adventurers will find them, and then that's where the campaign ends, because then they can actually be found by adventurers. Okay. Paradox 227, Demon Inc. The party acts as salespeople for various eldritch gods and have to find people to sign up as warlocks for their boss's pyramid schemes and either collect or pay off their unpaid debts. I mean, this is good as is, I think, honestly. That sounds amazing. Yeah, this function as is. Like, this could be a shorter campaign, it could be a longer campaign, that's your call. And yeah, the players would all be warlocks, and this would probably be like an evil campaign, and then your their patron would interact with them directly through rituals and like give them their quests. And so that's where all the quests come from, just from their patrons sending them out on errands essentially. And yeah, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, one thing that you could do is make really tough moral decisions that your players have to go through throughout the campaign. And so it'll make your players questions if they really want to serve this patron. And who knows, maybe it ends up being a really cool redemption story. Alrighty. Nisage. The party are literal animals, e.g., a non-intelligent wolf pack fighting against loggers. So this screams a one-shot. Probably not going to do a long campaign of this, but yeah, just give your players like the dire wolf stat block for a one-shot, and then you could plan something like a reason for them to interact with the loggers. Maybe the loggers kidnap their kids, and so there's kind of like a heist where you have to sniff out and find the loggers where they're keeping your kids. They find their kids. You can either just murder the loggers and take your kids back, or you can try and break your kids out stealthily and give your players those sorts of options. There we go. Oh my God, why is this not coming up? Mickerson 18. Adventuring has been monopolized by companies, and the players are freelancers who have to deal with cooperating. I'm assuming this means competing against corporate giants. So this could be a really cool way to dive into the morality of monopolies in our real world, which is cool. Yeah, so this could be like a short or long campaign where the campaign's BBEG is like the largest corporation in your world. Yeah, so in this style of campaign, the odds would be stacked against your players since they'll have limited resources, and the bigger corporations have more manpower, they have more money, they have more branding and advertising and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be a struggle for your players to get jobs at the beginning, and then it's going to be really important that your players do those jobs well, that they do them in a timely fashion so that they can get their brand out there and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, branding could be a huge thing about this, dealing with bad reviews, doing interviews to publicize yourself, creating a publicity stunts and all that kind of stuff. And there you go. That's 5 minutes right there. Boom. So I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching and indulging my hidden nerdy side.